If you're running a SOC, you know the problem. You wake up to hundreds of alerts. Threat actors are constantly changing their tactics. And by the time you have built a defense playbook, it is already outdated. So, how do you stay ahead when the rules keep changing? MITRE has built a framework that flips the script. It lets defenders think like attackers by mapping every technique, every AI exploit, and every criminal group's playbook in real time. And Akamai is using it to protect some of the world's largest infrastructure. In today's episode of CISO Insight, I'm here with Steve Winterfeld, advisory CISO at Akamai, to break down how MITRE ATT&CK and ATLAS tools work, how they are adopting for the AI era, and how Akamai is leveraging these resources to sharpen their security posture.
Always enjoy these sessions.
It's my pleasure. Same here. And today we are going to talk about MITRE. First of all, tell us a bit about what is MITRE and what role do they play in the cybersecurity landscape?
This is, part of a couple of things we've done. Last time we talked about OWASP, which is a volunteer organization, but a great industry standard that the cyber leaders and engineers should be leveraging. This time we're going to talk about MITRE. Now, MITRE is a federally funded research and development center. So the government pays for a few of these. There are a bunch of restrictions around them, but essentially they're a think tank focused on critical infrastructure, aviation, the defense industry, healthcare, things like that. They within cybersecurity, they're best known for their CVEs, the common vulnerability and exposures. So if a new virus comes out, the name and the number and all that we as an industry track, it's all coordinated through MITRE. Common weakness enumeration, they do that. And then what we're going to talk about today is all the resources that help us track and evaluate threats out there.
I mean, as you rightly mentioned, we have talked about MITRE attacks, before on the show. Now it's time for us to also talk about what exactly is MITRE ATT&CK.
So it's an acronym. It stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. And so some people call it a framework, some people call it a matrix, but it's basically a list of 14 tactics that make up a methodology for attack. So one attack may use, reconnaissance, initial access, and then lateral movement, and then basically it's going to execute ransomware. So that ransomware attack wouldn't have used all 14 of these, but others use all of them. And so it's just a way as a CISO that I think about, somebody attacking, how they do it, what they do it. So again, across those 14 original steps, similar to the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, then there's 200 techniques and over 400 sub-techniques. And what others haven't done in the past is, within lateral movement, these are making up a number here, these are the 20 techniques used for lateral movement. And then it breaks it out because we're not all the same. And so there's an attack framework for just a typical enterprise. Be it, Windows, there's a separate one for Mac, a separate one for Linux, separate one for cloud, and containers, hypervisors. Then there's another entire category for mobile IOSs, and then industrial control systems and SCADA devices. And so as we think about these, it's been tailored how people attack based on what kind of infrastructure we're using. So that's very beneficial. And then ultimately, if you've gone out before, some security vendors will use the attack evaluation. So you can go to MITRE and have them evaluate your defensive tool. And you can also get your people certified in, the MITRE Attack Defender, the MAD, training certification program. So just a tremendous resource on that side.
How would a CISO actually use it?
It's interesting. I'll tell you, one of the things I used to love about this when I was using it really is just to measure the maturity of my program. So, as I look at this, I've got, let's say 10 tools out there. And 5 of the tools are on prevention, and 2 of the tools are back here on, stopping exfiltration, data loss prevention, things like that. And so, I've got the bulk of my 10 tools on the 2 ends. Well, if somebody gets past that first one, it probably makes more sense to have 2 tools up there and then 1 or 2 tools on each one of the steps. So as they try lateral movement, as they try internal discovery, as they try, all these different steps they have to do, that give me multiple chances in their methodology to stop them. And so I really like to look at this first as, a measure of how truly flexible is my cybersecurity program. And if I stop lateral movement, if I stop, different techniques across the board. The second thing I do is I use this for threat training. I'll go talk to the coders and say, hey, this is how people are breaking through the things you're building and basically destroying them or committing fraud against our company. I'll go down to my Security Operations Center SOC analysts, and I'll have them train up so they can recognize when they see different threat groups and their methodologies and say, well, if I see this kind of indicator, then I should go look for, if I see they have access, and I should go look and see, have they exfilled any data? Because that's just great training. My red team's an attack team, my pen testers, I may say, hey, go use, this with a criminal group and give me a real world attack based on real world techniques being used out there. The threat intelligence teams can build some custom products out of these. And then finally, a tabletop exercise. If I want a scenario, I should just go in and pull a scenario directly out of here with very little effort. So again, number 1 use is, maturity, but number 2 is tons of different training opportunities.
Last time when you talked, and actually in every conversation, we do bring in the point of AI, because the fact is that irrespective of which space you are in, you have to evolve for the AI era, and this is increasingly important for security. And actually, I talked to a lot of security folks, and yes, AI is becoming their kind of a nightmare. A lot of code is being written through AI, so they are, kind of struggling to keep up with that. Has MITRE adopted their frameworks to address AI-specific threats? Where are we now?
Yeah, and as always, I want to be careful on how I answer this, because when I say AI, we all have a different thing in our mind. And so for this, I'm primarily going to answer where you have some kind of a large language model externally facing that customers or maybe your remote employees or something like that can use this. And so in that case, they've developed the adversarial threat landscape for artificial intelligence systems. And I love how they build these acronyms into words. And so this one is ATLAS. And so what they've done here is by building this out, they've taken that original framework and said, those are not the kind of attacks that we would see against, AI, against a large language model traditionally. Now, inference AI, more traditional attacks would probably work against, but not the language attacks. And so as you go in and look at that, it's a smaller, much lower numbers, but it's all tailored just to your external facing Gen AI programs. They've also developed, as you're building the Safe AI, which is a framework for AI assurance. So they're giving you a tool as you're thinking about building that external facing capability. And then finally, they're starting to do an AI incident sharing initiative. And so if you want to be in a collaborative group to kind of talk about what's going on with the threats, then that would be a great group to join. So they really are focused on that. They're putting out capabilities of that real time.
And when I'm listening to you, it seems like they track criminal groups and their tactics. Can you walk us through how that threat intelligence integrates with the tools that teams are already using?
So as I said before, they have that 14-step attack methodology on the enterprise one. Well, if you go look at this and pick a specific threat group, so APT-39 or the Lazarus Group or something like that, what they've done is they've gone out and they said, the Lazarus Group uses these 25 techniques, this malware, in this order, from this kind of a source. And so by doing that, then you can go into this groups, these cyber criminal attack organizations, and say, overlay these techniques on the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And so now as I'm looking and say, okay, they use all these techniques, I can kind of map my security controls to them and say, okay, so I should have caught them here in, lateral movement. I should have caught them in discovery. In all these different steps, I could have caught them. And then I can validate that by going and telling my red team or my pen test team, use these attack techniques from this specific criminal group and see where I caught them across that spectrum. So that's the kind of validation you can do. So real time, you just go to the criminal groups, you click on display attack navigator. When you go into attack navigator, it overlays the criminal techniques and the attack framework. And instantly you can kind of see where everything links up. It's a great visualization.
Can you also talk about what are the other resources that MITRE provides beyond ATT&CK and ATLAS?
Yeah, and so far I've really kind of focused on, as a CISO, what I focus on every day is defending the network real time. And so there are a lot of other tools out there that aren't so threat focused. The first is craft the cyber resiliency engineering framework. If you've ever gone out and read the NIST special publication 800-160, it is laborious reading. And so what they're doing is they're trying to take a tool that kind of maps all those things from the NIST. And this is that again, government funded cyber recommendations for policies and procedures. And so it's just, again, an easy tool to help you understand what's in there and where you can turn it into an actionable program. If you're in 5G, they have FIGHT, which is 5G hierarchy of threats. And again, with all their adversarial knowledge, they're tracking it back and showing what kind of things are attacking 5G systems. There's then adversary enumeration and red teaming, which is common language for red teams. So there are a couple things that one's just defend, one's just attack. So there are a couple frameworks out there that'll let you do this, to include Caldera, which is an automated security assessments. And finally, there are a few industry-specific ones like ADAPT, Adversarial Actions in Digital Assessment Payment Technologies. Obviously, something in wealth management, banks, something like that. But something where we see such high threat activity that they put out a unique product around that capability. So again, depending on, if you're in healthcare, there's a specific healthcare AI breakout. So some of these are designed by industry. Others are just broader. But there are a ton of those kind of capabilities out there that are worth going and taking a look at.
Can you also talk about how does Akamai specifically leverages these tools in their security operations?
So one of the things Akamai does is, we do that same maturity kind of thing. And we've looked at, how are we helping our partners protect against that entire attack chain? How are we making sure that entire data journey is safe from whether it's your employee or your customer? And so we have a number of capabilities that do that. If someone's doing initial reconnaissance, then our WAF is going to stop that. They're trying to do initial access, then again, the WAF, if they're doing denial of service, we have Prolexic, which is stopping denial of service against infrastructure. If they're attacking our APIs, we have API firewall. So we just have a number of products around that step. Execution, persistence, evasion, lateral movement, our microsegmentation interrupts all of that kind of thing because you're seeing it when it's happening. You have a chance to step in before it spreads. And then command and control and exfiltration, we have tools that help with that. So across that entire thing, just like you're seeing, that they have 14 opportunities for you to stop them, Akamai is going to be a partner in a lot of those different steps to go ahead and interdict and disrupt their methodology.
Now, let's just get practical for a while. If a CISO is watching this and wants to start using MITRE's resources, where should they begin?
So, MITRE has a great website. It's like any big organization that has a ton of tools. Part of it is understanding what you're trying to do. Personally, if you're on the defender side, you've heard me talk about the MITRE ATT&CK framework in the past quite a bit. I think that's where I've gotten the most benefit. But that's, again, because of my background as protecting larger networks. So it kind of goes back to your role. If you're looking to do something with AI, if you're in a specific, critical industry, then I would focus on maybe what are they doing that for that industry. And here it goes to things like, if you're in healthcare, their SCADA framework is great. They focus on broader healthcare security issues. And so that's kind of, it's not a clear answer. It's that classic, it depends. But really, if you're just going to go in and kind of understand what it is, I would go in and either directly to the website or go watch some of their YouTube videos. And they have YouTube videos for training, when I talked about that MAD program. But understand the attack framework, the criminal groups, and the navigator. Those three capabilities will let you walk away with a better understanding of the threat and how to protect against it.
Steve, thank you for joining me and walking us through how MITRE's frameworks help defenders stay ahead of evolving threats and how Akamai is using those tools at enterprise scale. Thank you for your great insights, and I look forward to the next conversation. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And for those watching, if you're facing similar challenges around threat intelligence and security posture, make sure to check out Akamai and its solutions. And don't forget to subscribe to TFIR, like this video, and share it with your team. Thanks for watching.